Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the SKYLIT Books podcast series. You're here for another SKYLIT author discussion. I'm your host for this episode, Justin Remer, and today I am talking with Wes Locher, the author of a book in the Who HQ series, which is it like middle grade? Is that sort of the target age for these books?
Yeah, man. Middle grade, ages 8 to 12 is kind of our sweet spot.
Nice. And it's a series of historical books and mostly biographical books. Wes wrote the book on Who is Weird Al Yankovic, a topic that is very close to my heart and also is perfect for April. April is National Humor Month, so it is actually going to be my staff pick in the store at SKYLIT Books for April for National Humor Month. Wes, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, man, thanks so much for having me, and thank you for featuring the book in National Humor Month. It's I got to be honest, it's the best one in the Who HQ series, so you picked a good one.
Well, I did also, I did track down your previous book, which was What is Tornado Alley, which was extremely informative.
Not as funny, though, oddly enough.
Certainly not. Certainly
tornadoes,
not as funny.
No one's figured out how to make tornadoes funny yet.
It does make me wonder. So how did you get hooked up with the Who HQ series?
That's a great question, and it has a very interesting story. So about I want to say 3-4 years ago now, I took my daughter, she was about 3 at the time. We went to a toy store. We were living in Ohio at the time. And we had to kill a rainy overcast day. So we went to the toy store and, she ran in there and was looking at all the stuffed animals and stuff. And as any parent does, we tend to kind of fart around and look for things that the kids might like as they get older. So as a reader and as a writer, I naturally gravitate toward the books and she likes books as well. So went over there while she was shuffling around and ran across the Who HQ books for the first time. And, as a fairly new parent at that point, I, wasn't keeping up on children's literature, don't know what was popular, what was cool. But I ran across these books and they had, this particular toy store had just a whole rack of them. I mean, there were hundreds of them. And I like nonfiction just as a rule in my own life and tend to read it primarily. So I picked up a bunch of these books. And even though I saw that they were for 8 to 12-year-olds, knowing that she wouldn't necessarily be able to read them for a while, it piqued my interest. So I bought a couple and took them home and was just kind of thumbing through them. And then next thing you know, I bought 3 at the time and I had read all 3 of them within a couple hours. And, as the people happen to do when they are writers, they go, oh, hey, I could write something like this. And so I kind of like made it my mission to figure out how to get in on the action. And just reaching out to the other authors that had participated in that series and trying to glean what information I could. Writers, they don't like people to steal their lunch necessarily. So it's kind of hard to get where you need to go sometimes. But thankfully, there were some helpful people along the way. They put me in touch with the editor of the series. I just sent her a cold email and said, hey, would love to get in on something like this. If you're ever looking for writers, let me know. She requested that I send over a writing sample, something that was pertinent for kind of the age range. And I just happened to have a nonfiction book that I was working on just of my own interest at the time. So I just kind of retooled it for that 8 to 12 age range, sent it to her. And then as happens in publishing, I heard absolutely nothing for months and months and months. And I figured, well, yeah, I shot my shot and it didn't go well. And then after the holidays of that year, I just happened to randomly get an email back from her one day. And she said, hey, I'd be interested in working with you. And but I only have one book left at the moment. And that is What is Tornado Alley? And while I grew up around tornadoes, like I do not consider myself an expert on Tornado Alley. But I thought, if this is my one chance to make an impression and sort of get in on that, then that's what I'll do. So I put all of my time and effort into just doing a good job the first time out. And I guess I did, because a couple months later had Weird Al come across my path as the second thing. And that was awesome, because whereas I did not know anything about tornadoes, aside from, dangerous, don't touch, run, I knew a lot about Weird Al. I'm a big Weird Al fan. So it was nice to know that there was the option to to get assignments that did fit with my interests as well.
So that answers what was going to be my second question was, did you pitch Weird Al or did they give you Weird Al? So.
Yeah, they offered it up, and I was so excited. Like, it was one of those moments where like I got a little bit giddy just because he's somebody that I've listened to for basically my entire life, and so to kind of have the opportunity to, I knew his story, but I didn't really know his story. But we write better books when we're interested in the topic, as you well know. And so it was like, okay, cool. I can get behind this and I can get excited about this. And that's what I look for in projects.
Yeah, actually. Okay. Well, for listeners who don't know, the background is I just wrote, excuse me, a 33 and a third book on Weird Al that's coming out at the end of this year, specifically about his album In 3D. And I was going to say that, so I know very much the story that you're telling in your book because I also knew it, but then researched it as well. But it was nice to discover a few little pockets of things where I was like, oh, I didn't know that little detail. That's pretty good.
That's awesome.
So I was excited about that. I was curious a little bit in both the Tornado Alley book and in this book. Maybe it's a feature of the Who HQ series, but both of them sort of start with this event that then the book kind of doubles back to, sort of like the teaser to get you into the story of this person or this subject. And how do you pick that event? Like what do you decide is your teaser moment?
Good question. And yes, all of the books actually begin that way. It's a good way to sort of lure the reader into it, throw them into the middle of the action and then kind of reveal the information that they need. So for Weird Al, we have his first, we start on his first televised appearance where he plays another one, Rides the Bus, I believe. So it was just kind of like, it was early enough in his career that it was kind of a fun point. He still had kind of that classic Weird Al look that we think of at that point. And so it was a good way. The editor and I kind of landed on, I'd pitched a different starting place, actually. I think it was maybe like when he first won his first Grammy Award. But she wanted to go a little bit earlier in his career. And she thought like the striking visual of him kind of appearing before television audiences on that performance. Because a lot of people, even the host didn't even really know what to make of him at that point. So it was a way that we could kind of describe his physical appearance. We could set the stage for how weird he is and really drill home for the reader that, this person is kind of breaking a lot of the norms of the time.
Yeah, he's a weird guy, but he's also a very normal guy too. I was curious, like, so when you were researching this, already having sort of a base of knowledge, where are you digging in? Where are you finding your stuff to augment and supplement?
Yeah, the research process on those books is actually the most fun part of the process for me. Just because I like to learn, I like to have interesting facts that I can break out at a dinner party if needed. And I'll be honest, people were tired of hearing about tornadoes, so it was nice to bring some fresh material to Thanksgiving that year. It's just there's. On some topics, you take tornadoes, there's a lot of books about tornadoes out there, whether it's the science of them, whether it's about telling about a particular storm that hit somewhere. Whereas Weird Al, he has some books about him, I would say not a whole lot, and definitely nothing for like young readers. So it was cool in that, like, I realized, hey, I'm actually putting out the book that's going to be the introductory state for some of these people. Mm-hmm. But so I read a lot of books. I read the books that are available about him. And then the other thing that I did that I really enjoy is just watching interviews online. And really, it's helpful if the subject has like a documentary about them.
Sure.
He does not, to my knowledge. He has some stuff on YouTube that's kind of like unofficial, but so you have to be careful about what you trust, obviously, from a sourcing standpoint. But getting to fill in the gaps in my own knowledge, like I first encountered Weird Al in 1996 with Bad Hair Day. I was a sixth grader. I think my sister maybe brought home the cassette. She was older and more into music. But that was my first encounter with him. So I definitely had to learn about everything prior to that. I did not know, much about his history, didn't know where he'd gone to school, had grown up, any of those facts. So it was really fun just to kind of put the pieces together and sort of follow that trail. I've followed pretty much everything he's done since that record, but I'll tell you the highlight for me was, even though I like Weird Al, like for instance, my wife does not want to listen to Al nonstop when we're in the car or around the house. And so the first thing that I did was just like, I reacquainted myself with all of his records and just listened to everything that he'd put out just to kind of get in the vibe and in the mindset. And I love so many of those songs. But like a lot of his early stuff, I hadn't necessarily heard before. So going back and hearing especially some of those like lo-fi recordings that are on like Weird Al in 3D or even prior to that, some of the stuff that he sent to Dr. Demento was just really cool. Like it was really neat to just sort of hear his growth and his progress. And you realize the thing that struck me that, I definitely didn't think about at the time when I first started listening to him, but like how talented not only he is, but his band is to be able to play like any genre of music. I mean, that's not something that's easy for a lot of people. So being able to go into it excited, but then walk away with sort of a newfound respect was super cool. And that's definitely was the highlight of the project for me.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny that you say that because much like Saturday Night Live cast, they say your favorite Weird Al is the one that was when you were 12 years old. So it sounds like that's exactly the case for you.
Totally.
Mine is a little bit older because let me see. When I was 12, it would probably be like either Off the Deep End or Alapalooza. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if those are my favorite, but I definitely will be like, those are underrated. So I guess close enough.
Sure.
But those are the ones that has like Smells Like Nirvana and Jurassic Park and stuff on it. Yeah. I guess that the thing that's interesting, because you talk about there's not really like a major documentary. There is that like behind the music on Weird Al that you can see on YouTube. How do you end up structuring a life then like his? Because famously the behind the music is like short on melodrama because he's not using as weird the Al Yankovic story, the fake biopic like makes him more dramatic, makes him a drunk, makes it like has him running around with Pablo Escobar. How do you structure a life that is kind of a little low on drama?
Sure. And it is funny that you say that because one of the things that I encountered was, people basically saying that his behind the music is the most boring one because there isn't any drama and he's just a regular guy, right. Which is refreshing in its own way. But, when we do those books, we always just follow the chronology of a life. And that's where it's like when you write about a person for that series, it's infinitely easier than like a place or an idea because you have a very hard chronology that you can follow. They were born, they lived, and some of them died, some of them have not. So just kind of following that and just making sure that, we lean into the parts that are important for every stage of that life. So, kids, when they're reading, they want to be able to relate to these people. They want to see something of themselves. They want to know that they are not alone in some aspects. So sort of like digging into maybe some of the weird things he did when he was younger, or like what was the genesis of him becoming weird, and really kind of diving into where did he get his sense of humor. You learn from reading the book or any book about him that his parents were pretty funny too, and they sort of helped kind of breed that into him. So just knowing that, like, he found himself in very strange situations and made the best of it. Like, one of, not spoiling the book or hopefully not spoiling your book, but one of the things that I liked was that, when he first started playing accordion, basically a traveling salesman came to the house and offered to either, rent him an accordion or a guitar. And while he wanted to play the guitar, his dad suggested he play the accordion so he could be like the other Yankovic that plays the accordion. And, he basically played Elton John songs to teach himself how to do that. And that's cool. Like, that shows ingenuity. And you think about, like, that was such a big point in his life right there, because it could have gone a completely different direction. Would he still have been Weird Al if he learned how to play the guitar, or would we be in a completely different timeline? I don't know. But just those little moments that, like, where you see like, oh wow, this seems insignificant, or this maybe isn't like a major point in some people's lives, really kind of influenced the entire direction of his career.
That is one of those great points that it's like, would Al have made friends earlier if he wasn't playing the accordion?
Sure.
I like that detail. I didn't know that one that you talk about, like him helping to collect other rental
right.
accordions, and usually the folks were more than happy to get rid of the accordion.
They were happy to give it back.
When I was like 12 years old, there was a local radio station that played the Dr. Demento show, so I did get into that. Was that ever something that you were ever exposed to?
No, I didn't know really anything about Dr. Demento going into the writing of this book. You know, my parents were not like people that had the radio on all the time. So if we could have gotten him in, you know, northeastern Ohio, then I just never heard him if he was somebody that was like broadcast out there. So everything that I know about him, I actually learned from writing this book. But it was cool too because you know, I then went and listened to some of his shows again, just like learning things that I didn't know about, and getting a respect for some of these people that really helped pave the way for his success was really cool.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I did actually get a chance to talk with him for the book.
Oh wow.
It was a little bit of a process, but it happened, and
that's awesome.
And it's funny because at this stage of the game, you know, you can tell that he has like, well, here's my 5 stories, and I'm ready to give you those 5 stories.
Yes.
And it's like, I'm happy to hear them again. Mm-hmm. And here's a few other questions. But right. But that's interesting. And now as a side tangent, so wait, where are you from in Ohio? Because I am originally from Toledo, Ohio.
Okay, I grew up near Akron, actually.
Okay, excellent.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's great if you like snow and overcast weather. I did not. I was excited to leave after I finished up my schooling and stuff. But yeah, my family's all still there, so I still go back a couple times a year, and it's still overcast and beige.
Yeah. That's why both of us are talking remotely from not Ohio.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Which you know, perfectly fine state for the folks that are enjoying it. So
for sure.
Another question I have, so keeping on the National Humor Month tip of things, like what are some of the other comedians and maybe even comedy musicians that appeal to you, that like are potentially in your rotation if they annoy your spouse or not?
You know, the one I would say is listening to Weird Al directly influenced me to get into Stephen Lynch. If you know him, the guitarist comedian, I think he's still kicking around at this point. Not somebody that I'm super into anymore, but I definitely got on like the funny music kick for a while as a youngster in high school and stuff. So, but aside from that, like I don't listen to like a ton of comedy. I definitely like I came up on like the movies of like Mel Brooks and you know, the Naked Gun, the Zucker Abrams and Zucker stuff. So it's like I love anything that is over the top funny, and I think that's what spoke to me about Al's music. Is like the one thing that he does that I can't get enough of. It's like dessert to me, is when he starts singing a song and then like it slowly just gets darker and darker and darker as it goes. Like on the Bad Hair Day album, like my favorite song was always I Remember Larry, because yeah, because like it's about this guy that bullied him, you know, and kind of how he takes his revenge, and ultimately Larry disappears. But I just love the subversiveness of that. I just can't get enough of it.
Yeah, I think one of the first Weird Al albums I had or that I listened to was Even Worse, which has the song Good Old Days, which is of course not good in any way whatsoever. A lot of bad things happening in those days. Right. So yeah, there's that certain vein of gallows humor that goes through Weird Al stuff that's fun. Like that's the thing that I always think of when people are like, he's so family friendly. I'm like, yes. I mean, he doesn't curse, and
sure,
and he won't like get sexual. Apart from a reference to boobs, like in Jackson Park Express or something like that. But he has that like dark gallows humor too, which maybe, you know, like 12-year-olds need. They need a little bit of gallows humor in their life.
Do.
I was curious about some of the things that you potentially had to gear more toward your audience, because I was thinking about, because you talk about UHF and you talk about how it wasn't a success at the box office. And then you say something that is true, but isn't necessarily, I think, the first thing that folks would think to say, which is that it found more fans on DVD and streaming, which is, I think the instinct would be like, and then when it hit VHS, and I'm like, oh, 8-year-olds would need a whole sidebar about what was VHS like.
You hit the nail on the head. Yep. You can't reference something outdated with something outdated, as it turns out. So exactly. and I'm hoping they know what DVDs are, because if they don't, I'm in trouble.
That's a good point too. Yeah. I was interested too about like what was sort of select, because there are sidebars throughout to sort of like enhance, like there's a discussion of like, who are the Amish, who was Coolio, like where do you decide which points to like zoom in on?
For me, it's always like, I was the type of reader when I was young that like I loved when I encountered a word that I didn't know. And I would always like go and look it up and flip through the actual dictionary until I found what that word meant. So I'm just always kind of looking for like what is something that we could do here that is either, because obviously the books have illustrations too. And so it's like, what is a cool visual? Like what would be something that would be good for an artist to kind of create here? And so I look at that a lot, but then I also just think about like, what's something that I could expose a younger reader to that might impact them in some way. So for instance, like Coolio, like, sure, we know that he parodied that song, but Coolio from a musical standpoint couldn't be any more different than Weird Al. And while parents, some parents may not want to hear that around the house, it's like when you're a kid, like how do you hear about things? You hear other people talking about them, your friends are talking about them. So I just thought it would be cool to just look for ways to interject things that they might not encounter otherwise. And there's some things that lend themselves, like we always try to zoom in on people, whether they're alive or not, just to show another side to things. I like sidebars that like can tell like a little bit of another story somehow. Just to go off on a little tangent. It also helps to keep the text fresh. We all have terrible ADHD anymore. Our attention spans are nothing. So it's like, if I can bring them, if they're getting tired of reading about Weird Al, okay, well, let me take you over here for a minute and we can talk about this other thing. And then you can come back and rejoin the story in progress.
I think it used to be called like, that hyperlink phenomenon of like you're reading an article and if there's a link to another side topic, then you go off on that and then you're
go down the wormhole.
Like 10 open windows and you're like, oh right, where did I start with this?
Exactly. Yeah. You're lost in the land of tabs.
How long did it take you to write the book?
Oh, it's a pretty quick process. I usually have about like 3 months to do the research. Mm-hmm. And then after that, there's usually maybe, because publishing works so far ahead, everything has to be done within certain time frames so that we can get the art done, get the cover art done, get all of the marketing materials together. I like to write them very quickly while all of the information in my head is still fresh. So it usually takes me like 2 months to write the manuscript. And that's just like not only writing it, but then being able to read it back with fresh eyes before I send it back to the editor, just to make sure that I'm happy with anything. I might get like, I might beg my wife to read a section at that point just to make sure that the words make sense. It's great when she doesn't know about a topic, so that, you can look at it a little bit more objectively and say, does this make sense? Because even though we are, we're teaching readers as well, or we're teaching them things about various things. And whether that's like an instrument, like for instance, we have like I talk about how an accordion works in the book. And, even that is just like a fun little sidebar, a fun little journey into kind of sharing that with them. So yeah, it usually doesn't take more than a couple months to write it. And then I'm the type of neurotic writer that likes to get all his deadlines in early. I don't want them to have to worry about me or have to worry about the status of the book. So I like to get stuff in as soon as it's done. So that way we have, more time for the editing process as well.
That's great. Because you have 2 with the Who HQ series, and I saw that you have another one forthcoming on AI. are you just sort of like in the rotation now, and they're like, do any of these topics interest you, or how does that work?
Yeah, so exactly. I'm sort of just in the rotation now, and sometimes I will get a choice, but pretty often it's like, how would you feel about this? And if it's not something that interests me, the editor is understanding. Like, for instance, I don't have any type of like baseline knowledge about sports at all. So if I ever got a sports book, that would be really hard for me. And so I've shared, I'm like, sports is not my forte. If you're looking for sports, I don't think I'm your guy, because I would just I would literally have to learn how the game works before I could do anything else. Like, I'm the type of guy, like, we just had the Super Bowl a few months ago or last month. And I went on this tirade that I probably do every single year to my wife. I was like, there needs to be something at the beginning where they just tell me how the game works, because I don't know how it works and I have questions. So yeah, so they essentially just, she'll pop up and she'll say, hey, you interested in this? And if it's either yes, it's either a no. And if I say yes, we kind of roll from there. So I have Where's Tornado Alley? Where's Who is Weird Al's coming out? What is AI comes out in May, and then I have two more that one is in process, but I have another one that's completely done that comes out in 2027. Just hasn't been announced yet. So we work pretty far ahead. I'm working on a book right now for 2028, so we're pretty far out in front of things.
That's cool, and it's such an interesting, far-ranging series, because I also sort of looked through some of the other offerings, even just at the Los Angeles Public Library, of like, who is Willie Nelson, who is Carol Burnett, who is Michelle Obama, and then there's also some that are Spanish language as well.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other languages in the series, or is it just English and Spanish right now?
I think it's just English and Spanish. I haven't had the fortune to have any of the ones I've done translated. I'm hoping Weird Al is going to be the first. I'm feeling good about that. Yeah, it's, there's a lot of different subjects, and I love that, because obviously younger readers have such a wide variety of interests. They've also done, there's kind of like there's a couple sub versions of the series too. So for instance, they do something that's called Who HQ Now, and those are like very timely books. So if like an actor or a musician is very popular, like they'll push those out on like a rush schedule. So they kind of like to strike while the iron is hot. And then they also have a series of board books for even younger readers. So if you want to introduce your infant or toddler to, Beyonce or Taylor Swift, you can do that. Which is super cool. Why not, right? When you're a parent of a child at that age, it helps when you can read to them things that interest you. So like, I totally get it. They also have a series of graphic novels that they do as well that are, fully illustrated and still kind of fit the narrative structure of that. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can engage depending on what your interests are. And I think they do a great job of just trying to pick out things that are topical or interesting and that are in the zeitgeist is very important. But I actually love when I encounter the books. The advantage to this is that often, if I have questions, then like 2 days later, I'll get a box of Hugh HQ books that are relevant on my doorstep. So I've built up a little bit of a collection up here, actually. But it's cool because like I love reading them, and I can read them relatively quickly because they're so short. But just learning about things that I just have no built-in knowledge about is really cool. So like one of them I just read recently for research was like, what was the Great Chicago Fire? I was like, I didn't know anything about that. And now I have like a, dinner party conversation level knowledge of it. So let's do the thing.
I know. Yeah, it is oddly appealing because with your book, because it's not out yet, I wasn't able to get an advanced copy, but I was able to get an advanced audiobook copy. And it honestly is kind of like one of those like history podcasts, like popping one on. It's got a little bit of a vibe of just like, yeah, it's just a nice bite-sized history podcast. And now I have a little biography in my mind. It's really nice.
Totally.
It does remind me that at the end of the book, there's sort of a discussion of the subject's timeline, but then also sort of like what else was happening in the world at that time. And there's some interesting ones in this book. I'm assuming that you got to pick those, or
I
where did those
did. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I picked those, and before you share your thing, I'll share with you that like one of the guidelines that my editor gave me, she was like, try to stay away from things that are very common, like things that would have been in every other book in the series. So it's like if you're doing a date in 2001, then that's probably going to be like the September 11th terrorist attacks that people are going to naturally gravitate towards. So I actually looked for things that were maybe a little bit out of the norm. But the fun thing is that I do not remember what was in the timeline for that book. So enlighten me with fun things that you ran across.
Oh, I mean, the only one I remember had to do with WWE, and I was just like, I can't imagine a lot more books being like, yes, 2014 was the I don't even remember exactly what it was, but spotlighting WWE in 2014. I was like,
nice.
This is a choice, and it's a choice I enjoy.
That's awesome. Yeah, and again, it's like you never know, because we're essentially comparing. So at the end of each book, you get like a timeline of whatever the book's about. So in this case, there's a timeline of Weird Al's life, which is just here's the year and here's like a little tidbit about him. It kind of sums up everything that was in the book, and then we run that parallel to a timeline of the world. So you kind of learn about. And this is obviously for the readers, not for you, since you read the book. But it's like we can compare it with what was happening in the world at that time, and that helps. That helps me get like a basis for okay, these two events happened simultaneously, and I wasn't thinking about that at the time. But it's cool that was all going on. So it's also a way for me to just fill in my gaps in historical knowledge as well. Now, I'll tell you the hard part though is like I have been writing about a topic for one of my future books that has a time span of about 5,000 years. And so that one's been a little bit more of a challenge on the timeline front, but fun too. You really learn about things that, you may have never known if you hadn't just done that deep dive.
You said that like as a reader, you're drawn to nonfiction, but do you also work on fiction projects? Like, are you also a fiction writer?
Sure. So, yes, in my day job, I work in the video game industry as a writer. So every day, all day is writing fiction. I also spent about 10 years working in comic books. So I've got about 7 graphic novels that were published over the course of that time. So yeah, I love fiction, but I also, I'm just so deep in it day to day that like, it's kind of like you said, it's putting on like an audiobook or listening to a historical podcast is just like a way to kind of calm down my brain. And it's fun to listen to at night. Like my wife always listens to historical podcasts when she goes to sleep. So it's like, it's cool to learn stuff. It's cool to pick up new things. And, they always, the joke is that like every male as he becomes older gradually gets interested in World War II. Yeah, that's happened for sure. But I also like, I really like, and I was fortunate enough to get to write a book, not for the Hugh HQ line, but for another of Penguin's lines called Time for Kids. It's a book about space, 300 space facts. So I really like space stuff. And so like, I tend to do a lot of reading in that arena because that's just something that interests me.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, obviously, I'm a terrible. Like, I didn't look into your background, so I didn't know about the video game stuff. But it does answer the question because on your video behind you, I was like, "Is that a collection of boss fight books behind you?" And I'm like, "That is definitely all right. Those are the boss fight books." Yeah,
yeah, and I love the 33 and a third series as well. I just read one last weekend. I read the Nirvana in Utero book, and that was a fun read. So I'll be definitely looking forward to yours, and I'll be sure to pick it up because that's highly relevant to my interests as well.
Yeah, I've been very lucky that I've run into some of the part of the way I got into pitching it is my friend Eric Wolfson wrote a 33 and a third book on Elvis.
Oh, nice.
And I make the joke that I was like, oh, well, if that guy can write one, why not me? It is a joke because he's a very talented writer, very smart, very, very cogent book. But I've been able to run into other writers in the series, and Jason Pettigrew, who wrote one recently on ministry, he said, whatever you do, don't read other 33 and a third books. And it's like, well, too late. I have been on a run pretty much for the past year and a half, just reading as many as I can. which hasn't frozen me in my tracks, fortunately. But
but there's extreme value in that, because then you can read them from the standpoint of like, what does this book do that maybe I don't like and don't want to do with mine, or what's similar, what's a path that you enjoyed. So that's cool, man. And pitching a book is one of the hardest things in the world. So the fact that you got in the door is something to be celebrated. So I'm super happy for you.
Thank you. It is kind of a little bit like your description, where like I sent in the pitch and then enough time passed, and I'm like, well, that's another one that didn't work. And then I got the email saying like, all right, we're doing it. I'm like, wait, really? Really? So
yeah, that's cool. Did you then you actually had to write the book at that point though?
Exactly. That's where it gets scary. Oh, yeah, I thought I could do this. I guess now I have to see if I can.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Did you get the bug, though? Does it make you want to do like more projects in that sort of style?
I have a lot more pop culture sort of related books percolating now.
That's awesome.
Probably mostly also in the same sort of like small pocket size vein, but maybe I'll have my 1,000-page treatise on I don't know, The Lonely Island or something.
There you go. I'd read that.
So you talk a little bit about using nonfiction to like decompress your brain. Like, is there anything that you've been getting into lately as well that you're able to sort of share with your family? Because you said you have a kid.
No, because she doesn't think that anything I think is cool. So that makes it hard. But my wife, she's really interested in like Greek mythology, for instance. So she listens to a lot of podcasts about that as she falls asleep at night. But then she falls asleep really fast, and so then I listen to the entire thing. So like I'll give her like a recap in the morning, like here's all the cool stuff that you missed. So it's like I like stuff like that, but I let her pick it because she's very specific about like the narrators and stuff. Like it can't be somebody that's too excited, but it also can't be somebody that's too boring. So she basically like we'll make the decisions and I go along for the ride. But then during the day, like I tend to read a lot of like, despite all these books back here, I read a lot digitally just on my phone. So I always have something that I can kick open. So like right now I'm reading a book about by a cosmologist that is theorizing about how the universe is going to end across like 6 different ways that it could happen. And while not like, now that I'm saying it aloud, I realize this is not like the happiest subject in the world, but it's fascinating. Like, I like to expand my thinking a little bit. So, but I was also telling her, I was like, we should listen to this audiobook. So I think you'd really like this. So maybe we will, and I'll just read it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting process to try to share something like that. On a much, much lighter vein, I recently bought the book Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Oh, sure. I've heard great things about that.
And my girlfriend stole it from me and read it first. So now I'm playing catch up, but then we'll be able to discuss it.
Sure.
And maybe delve further into the series. So,
but that's awesome.
Yeah. That's also very funny that you're like, your daughter just doesn't enjoy anything.
Yeah, that's kids. Like, for instance, like whenever I write these books, I end up getting like a comp box of them before, like a couple weeks before it comes out. And Penguin will send me, 25, 30 or something. And I keep trying to convince her to like take these books to school and give them to her classmates or give them to the library. And she's just like, no, I don't want anyone to know this. So I don't know if it's embarrassing to her. That's just how kids are. Unfortunately, we have a great relationship. It's not like she doesn't like me. It's just she would just rather be the center of attention. She would rather we talk about her.
Oh sure, yeah. No, yeah. Dad's trying to steal the spotlight. Yeah,
exactly.
I get that.
Although I did get her one day because I was like, because like at one point they were doing like a space unit at school, and I had told her that I had written this book about space, and it went in one ear and out the other. But I told her, I was like, you could take this book to your teacher, and maybe I could come in and read to your class, and that was like, oh. But then she still like later she was like, nah, I thought about it, not into it.
And it's like, this is my world. School is my world.
I know. Yeah. What are you going to do?
I don't know. What are you going to do? Well, it's been a delight talking with you, Wes. Is there anything you would like to plug at the end of our show here?
I would love it if people would consider picking up the Weird Al book, which is out on, I believe, March 24th, which is a
Yes.
couple of weeks from the time that we're recording this. And if you're somebody that really likes Weird Al and you're looking for a way to get your kids into the cult, then it might be a good way to go about it. But also, if you like Weird Al and you just want to maybe hear some stories that you're not familiar with, it'll be a quick read. It won't take you more than an hour and some change to get through. And I tried to play into the humor element, tried to write a funny, entertaining book. So I hope people dig it. And then got What is AI coming out in May. So if that was interesting because I didn't know anything about AI. So everything I learned about that was from basically like ground zero, but super cool. And, there's a lot of great things and there's a lot of terrible things about it. And we cover all of that. But just like from a historical standpoint, kind of like doing, the history of the computer and the history of AI and sort of like how we interact with it day to day, I think is really cool. I'm a little, I worry with something like that it could in fact be outdated by May, just with the speed of technology. But also, if that is the case, then I assume that we would update it at some point. But I learned a lot in that process, and that's a really, really cool book too, if I do say so myself. So, yeah.
Honestly, it might be something that I check out as well, just because it helped to unpack exactly how we got to where we got. Here.
I will tell you something that I have learned in the process of writing these books is that, I don't know why I didn't think of it sooner, but if I do want to learn about something now, or if I need to know about something, I will look for kids' books because they explain it in such a simple way that it's like, why have I not been doing this my entire life? Like, why have I not been reading kids' books about, things all through adulthood at this stage? Because they break it down so easily. And that's really nice occasionally.
Yeah. And if it gets really difficult, go for the board book. Go for the
Exactly.
Go for the baby style.
Exactly. Yeah. If you just want to look at pictures of something, you can do that too. It's okay.
Nice. Do you have anywhere that people can check you out? Are you on social media or anything like that?
Yeah. I hang out at my website at Locher, LOCHER.com. If people are interested in seeing the books, the comics, the video games that I've worked on, they can find me there. Social media is it's a cesspool of human energy. So I do steer clear from that a little bit more than usual. But if somebody sends me an email and wants a response, they will get a response.
Excellent. All right. And now here's my big gotcha question.
Oh.
What is your favorite Weird Al song?
Oh man, it's probably, like I mentioned earlier, I Remember Larry. I think that's definitely top 5. But I also really like The Night Santa Went Crazy, which is also an equally subversive song. And then the other song that I really found myself playing a lot when I was doing the research, I really like the song Hardware Store.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Which is, that was one of those songs that I somehow had just never heard before I went back and did the re-listen. And one of the things that I also found out in my reading is that I guess they don't play that song live, which makes sense if you hear the song.
Oh, yeah, so fast.
It's so fast and there's so many words. And it's just, I like really good writing. I like good songwriting, and that song has it in spades. So I would say those are my top 3 right there.
I mean, I commend you. You did not go basic. You went very cool.
What are your favorite songs? Can you share?
Oh my goodness. No. Why did I set myself up for that? I can, because I've been so in gate. Well, you know what? Okay. Yeah, let me try this. All right.
Do it. You got this.
I would say Dare to Be Stupid is way up there. So good lyrically, and it's a perfect like attempt to sound like Devo without copying a Devo song. Let me think. You know what? A lot of stuff of the original songs on Poodle Hat I really liked.
I like that record a lot too, yeah.
So I might go for something really nerdy like Genius in France. I'll go for Genius in France.
That's good.
And then just because of the accordion, I'm going to go for my Baby's in Love with Eddie Vedder. Let's go for that one.
That's a good one. That's a classic.
Yeah. So we got super nerdy at the end here, but
you have to a little bit.
Yeah. So yes, please indoctrinate your kids into the ways of Weird Al Yankovic with Wes's wonderful book, and then have them send in their top threes. What are their top 3 favorite Weird Al songs when they have them? Thank you so much for talking with me.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me. Have an awesome rest of your day, okay?
You too.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the SKYLIT Books podcast series. We hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to check out the book featured in this episode, or others, please visit skylitbooks.com. If you're in the Los Angeles area, stop by for one of our live in-person author events. You can find a calendar on our website. If you like this podcast, leave us a review. It really helps us out. Our music is by Duck the Piano Wire. Till next time.